There's an often quoted statement in the personal development world that says the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. And whether it's a YouTube comment or an email in my inbox, I've noticed that in personal finance, oftentimes we're asking the wrong questions. So I want to share with you 3 questions that you need to stop asking and some better questions that you can replace them with. So the first question is, can I afford this? And immediately, one of the problems with this is that most people answer this question by saying, basically, can my income handle the monthly payment? Or do I have enough room in my checking account to write this check? Or even worse, do I have enough room on my credit card to charge this amount? But the problem isn't just with the way we answer the question. The problem is with the question itself. A much better question is, what will this purchase bring to my life? And is it worth the trade-offs? Instead of asking, can I afford this, by looking at your checking account, instead, I want you to think about your future. Think about your bigger goals. Think about where you're heading in life, whether that's some retirement planning that you're doing or trying to pay down debt. And then think about this individual purchase that you're considering. Is it going to help you achieve that future, or is it going to hinder you from achieving that future? And if it does hinder you, it doesn't mean you can't still buy it. You may be willing to make the trade-offs. We've certainly purchased things like this Airstream or our pets that hinder our immediate ability to achieve that future, whether it's investing in, more in our 401ks or saving up money to put a down payment on a rental property and some of our longer term goals. By purchasing certain things now, we certainly have taken and made trade-offs that hindered us from getting to some of those goals faster, but we were willing to make them. The point is, unfortunately, most of the time when we ask, can I afford this? We're just quickly looking at our bank account or looking at our income and making a decision based on that. I would much rather you say, okay, what is it about this specific thing? And is it going to, bring something that's going to help me towards my goals, or is it going to stop me from getting there? And if it is going to stop me from getting there, or at least slow me down, am I willing to make that trade-off? Okay, the second question that I want you to stop asking is, what on average do other people spend in certain categories like groceries or rent or car payments or whatever? How much are other people spending? What percentage of their income are they spending? There's 2 big reasons that this is a bad question. First off, oftentimes you're not comparing apples to apples. It's very much so an apples to oranges comparison. Take groceries, for example. Some people, the way that they track their money or in their budget, basically just throw all of the spending at one particular store like Costco or Sam's or Walmart into a groceries category, when really that could be food and cosmetic items and household items and cleaning supplies, and maybe even clothing sometimes slips in there, because it's just easiest to throw everything I bought at Costco into that one groceries line item. It's also difficult to understand, okay, what about your family breakdown and your family structure? A young married couple is going to have a very different grocery budget than somebody who's in their 40s with a couple of kids. And even the person in their 40s with a couple of kids would have a very different grocery budget if they had, let's say, 2 boys in high school who were, on the cross country or the football team. Their grocery bill is going to be drastically different. The other problem with groceries is we haven't even begun to talk about our own personal values. If you're someone who values, good, healthy, organic, nutritious products versus somebody who's willing to just buy the cheapest possible thing, comparing your groceries is nearly impossible to do. And when you're looking online for average grocery spending of an average American household, you don't get any of the nuance to understand if what you're doing is quote unquote in line. The other problem with this question is that rules of thumb can vary drastically depending on what part of the country you're in and what stage of life you're in. If I said that you should strive to keep, your total housing budget at 25% or less of your monthly income, well, that's very easy for me to say as somebody who grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in a relatively low-cost area. If I told that to somebody who's fresh out of college, trying to really get a start in their career, so they're not making much, but they're living in downtown Manhattan, that person is going to be really hard-pressed to keep their budget at 25% for their housing. A much better question is tracking your own budget and then asking yourself, does this amount that I'm spending for this category, the percentage of my income going to this category, does that align with my own personal values, or does it not? don't really pay too much attention to what somebody else is doing. If you're a natural homebody, you may want to spend more on your housing setup because it really matters to you. Whereas somebody else might say, that actually doesn't matter to me at all. I'm going to go super cheap on the housing piece so that I can spend more money on travel. You've got to calculate for your own personal values. So yes, do look at the percentage of your spending, but try not to compare it to other people. If you are going to compare because you have to just see kind of how you're doing and how it lines up, I beg you, think of it like weight on a scale for your health. It is a number, but it is by no means the single factor that you should pay attention to for whether or not you're living a healthy life. Just use it as a very, very rough rule of thumb, but ultimately, you need to think about your own values, what matters to you, and if the spending you're doing aligns with that. Okay, question number 3 is, why would I buy this thing over here when I can get XYZ alternative for cheap or even free? In personal finance, for example, this comes up all the time with budgeting tools. Why would I pay for a tool like YNAB when I can get another tool like Mint for free? And they're both budgeting apps, right? Why in the world would I just not take the free option? But in reality, those two tools have very different underlying philosophies and very different mechanics for how they help you budget your money. And one of those tools may actually create behavior change to where you're actually saving money, whereas one of the other tools may not work for you. For me personally, and Hannah, Mint didn't create the change that we desired to help us actually save money. For us, being able to pay for YNAB, that actually helped us create behavior change to save more money than we would have otherwise, for us, that trade-off of paying those dollars is totally worth it. Another example is like with fitness. Hannah and I have been trying for years to stick to a regular fitness routine, and all the information for how to work out and different workouts, all of it is for free here on YouTube or anywhere else on the internet. But last year, Hannah was interested in enrolling in a paid boot camp. It was a 12-week class online that she would go through this specific series of workouts with another group of students. And the workout instructor, the lady's name is Krista Stryker from the 12-Minute Athlete, she basically would provide feedback on your videos that you submitted. And so we paid a few $100s for Hannah to kind of go through this. And I joined Hannah along in the workouts along the way. We felt like that was what we needed. We needed to make that investment in order to really kickstart us on our workout journey. And I can tell you right now that it absolutely worked. And we have gotten a lot more value out of that now because for us, it's what helped us go forward. And it's what helped us actually stick with our workout plan. And that's why I don't like this initial question of, well, this free or cheaper option exists. Why in the world would I not go with that? Because that defaults to always the cheapest option. A much better question is, what's the best tool for the job based on the value it provides and how important that value is to me? Now, that last part of this question is really, really important here because I'm not saying you should always go with the newest and the best, most expensive option out there. I'm saying that you need to look at the value that option brings you and compare it to how important that is for you. For me and Hannah, we have a 2001 Ford F-250 with 260,000 miles on it. We could certainly pay a lot more money and get a better truck that would pull our Airstream and technically do its job better. But based on what we care about and how important that value is to us, we basically have found a truck that suits our needs and is exactly within the price range that we're willing to pay. I think when it comes to this particular question in this conversation, people tend to find themselves on one of two extremes. You get the people who sort of always default to the cheap or the free option and just always want to go that path and never really want to explore if they could pay a little bit more money to get something that's higher quality but worth it. Then you get people on the opposite end of the spectrum who are basically always looking for that brand new sort of thing, right? This is your tech nerd who's always upgrading their phone to the latest and greatest, or always looking for the newest and most best thing in the world, and not necessarily looking at how important that specific thing is to them. I want you to try and find some sort of happy middle ground where, yes, you are trying to save money, but you are mindfully upgrading and spending more when it makes sense for you. Now, if you liked this video, be sure to check out this video right here, which is all about 3 pieces of personal finance advice that you should ignore. This is common advice touted by a lot of personal finance experts that's ultimately wrong. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.